Alright, what's up? Today, I'll go over some really basic compositing in After Effects because, like, some of you guys have been editing for so long and still don't know how to do it. So, before I get into the steps for compositing, I'll give you, like, a little bit of a background for what compositing actually is because, in my opinion, it'll help you, like, understand how to apply these type of principles. So, compositing is a process of, like, combining, like, multiple visual elements into a singular scene. So in a lot of cases, it'll be the background and the foreground, but it's also like, graphics and effects on top of the footage already. You see this like practically everywhere nowadays. You probably just don't really realize it. Tons of anime nowadays properly utilize compositing to have some really nice lighting and blending. Movies do it too. Specifically, like I feel like I can say Marvel movies do it a lot because they have like all the blue screens and the backgrounds and stuff for the environments. So they use compositing to properly blend these scenes, and this also goes for like visual effects as well. All right, so I kind of already skipped a step here. I already kind of fucking rotoscoped the clip and also interpolated it. Here's a picture of the scene beforehand. So you can see it's like relatively blue background. It's pretty monotone, like flat light. And if you don't know how to rotoscope, it's pretty easy. You just press up here, you click on your layer, and you can rotoscope the layer out. Or you can use, I think Meta Labs has like a really nice rotoscoping tool, better than the After Effects one, because the After Effects one's kind of shit. I'm not gonna lie. So you can do that. Or if you're a psychopath, you can just mask out every single frame if you want to be like insanely accurate and precise. But basically, the first step in compositing is separating the layers of your video. Whether you're going to put stuff between the original background and the foreground, you need to separate these layers. Since we are already editing composited footage, we're just going to practically undoing what the compositors did for the scene and doing it ourselves. So for this example, I'm just going to change the background. So I'm just going to drag this image in. Yeah, so we have this background now. When it comes to this type of compositing, we like change the background. I typically don't do this type of thing because dragging an image with completely different lighting onto the same character can kind of result in some like weird lighting stuff. So typically people make their backgrounds. They do it in a 3D software typically. I'm not doing that today because I'm just going to be showing you how to composite in the first place. That's something to keep in mind just when we're getting started. Okay, so now that we have our background in place, I'm just going to add some stuff to the background to give it a little bit more depth, make the compositing a little more interesting. The reason why I'm not compositing the character to the background first is because we're going to want to determine what the character is going to look like when we add all this shit in. First, I'm just going to add a fractal noise effect. Because yeah, now that we have this fractal effect, I'm just going to set it to like dynamic progressive. So yeah, now we have our smoke. Obviously looks like shit, so we're going to take Unity.unmult and we're going to drag it on. And now we can see it blends through, so it looks bad. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm going to lower the brightness a little bit. I think like maybe right, so -20. And we're gonna increase the contrast a little. Then I think I'm gonna scale it up. Let's make it like maybe like 900. Now we have like a more realistic looking smoke going on in the background. I'm gonna up the complexity a little bit maybe. Yeah, there we go. Since I'm not gonna be doing like crazy keyframe stuff with like shakes or movement, I'm just gonna add like a minor evolution keyframe animation, so like you can see like it moves a little bit. Now you can play with the C a little bit to get what you really want. C pretty much just changes like what your smoke looks like because obviously it's generated as something beforehand, so when you put the seed in, it kind of just changes the whole thing. So yeah, I changed it a little bit. I like this a little bit more. And yeah, so we have our smoke now. Fractal noise and nebulosity are like great effects in general. Like you can use it for fucking anything. But it's definitely really great for like compositing because adding this like smoke makes everything look really nice. Especially by the finished product, like you'll see like it'll add a lot. That's all I'm gonna say. So I'm gonna throw on something else now. I'm gonna add s_rays. So yeah, you can see now that it adds like volumetric lighting. Some places that you wouldn't want it, like up here for example. So we're just gonna like tweak it a little bit. So the idea here for this volumetric lighting is I want it to like poke between the gaps in the leaves and the windows. So I'm just gonna drag the center. I think I want the lighting so up here, for example, because if we look at the character, you can see the lighting is like hitting the left side of the character a little bit here. So yeah, we're going to be using that to our advantage. I'll just make the rays a little bit less bright, and I'm also going to tweak the length a little bit. I'll make it like 700, I think. Obviously, it kind of looks a little weird right now. You see the lighting be kind of like reflected in weird spots, but when you finish the compositing overall, it'll look a lot better. The fractal is also kind of blends the lighting. It makes it seem like it's like having some weight to it, if that makes any sense. Alright, and for the background, this isn't really like a normal step people really do. I just think it might look kind of cool here. It's kind of what a lot of compositing is, it's just adding shit you think would look cool. So I'm going to add s_autopaint, and you can see it kind of stylizes the background. So I think I'm going to do this type of style, hairy paint. Frequency is pretty much like how much the image is being like kind of fucked with. I'm going to increase the frequency so that like you can see more of the actual image here. See, I look kind of ass right now, but we're going to fix that later. It'll be finished all when we're like done with this whole thing. So now that we have that, we're going to be considering the foreground here in our lighting. So you can see that on the left side of the character, there's a lot more light being reflected, like hitting her, and less light on the right. So I'm going to add CC Composite. See, I'm going to add CC Composite. I'm going to set it to multiply. So you see that like the lighting is a little bit like nicer. It's not as overwhelming as before when you have the CC Composite, but I'm also doing this for the gradient. So we're going to add something called s_gradient to our layer. Okay, so now we have the gradient. You can see like it fucking just removes the entire background. So make sure you can set it to mult. So yeah, so now if we move this around, you can see how it's affecting the lighting. Like right here, it's a little bit brighter. And I bring this closer, it's darker. Kind of revealing more of the fractal as well on top of it. So see, now that we have our lighting, I'm going to move it somewhere up here for like where the light is hitting. So like, yeah, right there should be good. Our end, since the light is relatively flat, I'm going to just drag it a little bit farther away because there is like some light being portrayed here, but it's still pretty monotone. I'm going to set the brightness a little bit higher. So now the lighting's a little bit more dynamic. Alright, now that the background's practically finished, I'm just going to make sure I have this fucking gradient enabled first. And then I'm going to pre-compose this layer. I'm just going to name it BG, background. And now we can start working on the character layer. When it comes to compositing characters, there's something that typically pretty much every anime editor does, I'm pretty sure. So we're going to start with adding drop shadow, set matte. Then we're going to add CC composite. Then we're going to add s_gradient. Make sure so use your drop shadow to shadow only. Make sure your set matte settings are all these, so it should also be, you take matte from the same layer, being your character layer. For CC composite, make sure your transfer mode is multiply, but also RGB is off. From here, your combine is also mult. Alright, so now we have our character here. Fully ready to be composited. You should honestly make this a preset, which how you do that, you just right click all of it, and then you go to animation, save animation preset, but I already have it as one, so we don't need to do that for now. Alright, so now we have all this set up and prepared for compositing. So first, we're going to start with the drop shadow. So this will be determining like the fucking shadow on the character. I don't know how else to say it. So our light is primarily coming from the top left. Let's say the drop shadow angle is, honestly this kind of works, like 135. Like that should be good because it's coming from the top left. So the direction is going to be going to like a bottom right angle. Lighting overall is still pretty flat. I'm just going to tweak these settings a little bit. So I'm just going to increase the distance. You can see like the farther you set the distance, the less harsh the lighting becomes. If we soften it, however, you're gonna start to see it come back as like very minor lighting. I'm gonna set the softness to like 16, like 30 something like that. Yeah, very minor change overall still. But from here on, that is going to be our drop shadow for this character. And now for the gradient, this is the next step. It's a similar idea to what we did for the gradient beforehand for the background. The lighting overall is like pretty flat, so the drop shadow is not gonna be like that prominent. So I'm gonna place the start of the ramp for this gradient like somewhere around like here. I'm gonna place the gradient. Then for the end of the gradient, I'm gonna place it pretty far away. I think like right there should be good. So you can see now, this is adding a slight ramp on it. I'm gonna increase the brightness of the ramp, so now, yeah, the character's a lot more prominent now. Alright, now that we have our layer finished, I'm just gonna comp this, name it Freerun. And now the next step for compositing is we're gonna add something called Creates Light Wrap. Alright, so this effect's pretty important for blending layers together. Creates Light Wrap is free, so don't worry about like if you don't have it yet or not. So first make sure the background layer is set to the background layer, so we're gonna set background layer to BG. And I can see you already kind of started to do something. Okay, so some of what this like effect is, it just takes the background and quite literally just like wraps it around the character. So for example, if we don't have any background blur here, and then we just take the wrap width, so it's like 900, you can see that like the character is just kind of being like slowly consumed by the background. But then if we increase the background blur, you can see that like character starts to fit in a little bit more. So like, yeah, we can see like the background blur pretty much just smooths out the wrap, and the wrap width is how much the character is being consumed by the lighting of the scene. Alright, so like I said already, the lighting here isn't very harsh, so it's like very flat lighting. So the light wrap's gonna be pretty even overall. So I'm just gonna set the background blur to max, and then I'm going to make the wrap like 665. So now that we take it off, you can see the character is a lot more, it blends in a lot better with the overall screen and character. We can like turn up the blend of original a little bit, so now we can see like it's not as harsh anymore. Alright, our composite's practically done at this point, but there's a few things you have to do to like really wrap it up and make it look really nice. I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna throw on the same fractal noise on top, and I'm going to change it and tweak a few things. And I'm just gonna make a little mask to make it seem like the lighting is only like hitting the lower half of Freerun, like it's actually like a fog. It's like consuming the bottom half of the screen. And then I'm going to feather it a little bit and make it, can expand it a little bit. So now we have like a little bit of a fractal bottom half of the screen. Then I'm going to add a minor lens blur to the background. I think like port radiation will be like maybe like 6 maybe. So it kind of makes the character look like they're standing out. It's pretty much just depth of field if you know anything about cameras. Then if you want, you can throw on a lens flare. See, I throw a like a minor lens flare. It's a little bit, makes it a little bit more interesting to look at. So I'm gonna keyframe it so like it moves with the character. Okay, so yeah, pretty minor effects on top. Nothing special, but adds a little bit more depth to the whole thing, so everything look a little bit nicer. So this looks alright. Alright, and the final step to compositing, what brings it all together, is color grading. This isn't a color correction and color grading tutorial, so I won't be going into detail on it since that in itself could be a really lengthy tutorial. But I'll just show you what I'll do for the color grading of the scene so you can try it and apply similar ideas to yours if you are not familiar with color correction and grading. Okay, so first thing I do is I start with a film convert nitrate. So this effect, it pretty much just converts like the footage to try and emulate what film looks like. It's a great effect. I use it in pretty much all of my color corrections. I just really like how grain looks overall. So exposure is a little bit higher. Temperature, this is pretty self-explanatory. Like it changes from blue, like a cooler, warmer temp. Tint, more green, more pink. And film stock, this is pretty much like a preset. So like obviously there's many stocks you can choose from, all emulate different things. I just like how this one looks in this case. So grain, obviously turn it up, lower it. You can see the difference there. I'll just put it at 90. Alright, next we have magic bullet looks. This is a great effect for color grading. So diffusion, it pretty much slightly diffuses the light evenly. That's the whole idea there. It makes it a little bit brighter too because you have a glow. Chromatic aberration, this doesn't really do anything in this case. It just kind of changes how the middle is perceived. Lens vignette, that is pretty much just the corners everything that is not in this box gets a little bit darker. So it kind of makes everything in the middle, aka the character, a bit more of the focus. Edge softness is the same exact idea here. So pretty much it's just a blur. So the blur gives us our focus on our character. And then we have the LUT. This is pretty much it's just another color grading thing. Many presets you can pick from. I just picked Vibrance thing because I think it looks nice. Alright, and then we have the Mojo. Mojo is a great effect. I don't really know how to explain what type of effect it is. It just kind of like, I would say it kind of like squeezes color out, and like you can like change like a lot of things with it. Next we have curves. This one's an important one. This pretty much corrects all the highlights and the shadows. So you can see with our red one, the shadows are a little bit brighter, but the highlights are a little bit darker. Same with green's the opposite. Our highlights in the green will be brighter, and the shadows in the green will be darker. Same idea of blue, pretty much, pretty similar. So yeah, if you don't really see how curves work, pretty much this side is brighter, like the left side of the curve is brighter. This side of the curve is darker. So if you bring, for example, this lower half of it up, like the shadows will get brighter. But if I bring this part of it up, the highlights will get brighter. But if I bring all of it down, it gets darker overall. So yeah, that's curves. It's great for color correction as well as color grading. These are just minor effects I added on top, just because I feel like it was a little bit too bright. Added a little bit of contrast and lowered saturation and lightness a little bit. Alright, that's it for this tutorial. I hope this relatively basic tutorial was able to help you like understand compositing just a little bit more. Because like the main takeaway is that when you separate these layers, the potential for what you put between them is practically limitless. Whether it's as simple as like changing the background, or just changing the lighting, or doing something completely different, these basics are what you should be following and implementing to have a good composite. Alright, thanks for watching. Peace.